Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Two former prime ministers against referendum on Caribbean Court of Justice as Jamaica's final appellate court. Experts react to Jamaica's 60th Grand Gala celebration. And later in sports, Serena Williams to retire from tennis. I'm Shane Masters and here are the details. Should Jamaica adapt to the Caribbean Court of Justice (CCJ) as its final appellate court? That discussion continues to rage as the country celebrates 60 years of independence. But what do former Prime Ministers Bruce Golding and PJ Patterson think? We have more in this report. For years, there have been discussions about whether Jamaica should leave the UK-based Privy Council and adapt the Caribbean Court of Justice (CCJ) as its final appellate court. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has repeatedly said the question of whether Jamaica adapts the CCJ as its final appellate court would be put to Jamaicans in a referendum. But to date, no timeline has been given. But at least two former prime ministers are against a referendum. Speaking during a TVJ exclusive interview, Prime Ministerial Conversations, on Monday night, former Prime Ministers Bruce Golding and PJ Patterson blasted the idea. Mr. Golding said such an important and delicate matter may be voted on by the public on a political basis.
The decision as to what is my final court and who are the judges that I will have to confront is going to be made on the basis of who it is who got the money to go and vote, or who it is that complained that, boy, the MP never get the work for him, so whatever the MP is telling him to do, I'm going to do the opposite. That's reckless, that's dangerous. And I don't think it's something that we could even afford to counter that.
There were also considerations for Jamaica to have its own appellate court. That was raised by then Prime Minister Bruce Golding in 2010.
There was a strong view that, yes, we need to get rid of the Privy Council, but why do we replace the Privy Council with a court over which our Constitution really has no control? So, I mean, if the court were to disappear tomorrow, we would be in a bind. And that was when the view was expressed that we need to look at the possibility of establishing our own court.
However, Mr. Patterson believes that while there are competent persons across the island to assist in such a court, the decision would not be a wise one.
We are already paying the costs in full of the CCJ for doing appellate work. And it is money we can't recover.
In addition to that, your own final court would be confined to the cases that emanate locally.
Yes.
A regional court gives you a much broader range of cases so that you build a more robust jurisprudence in dealing with the law. So when a case comes up in Jamaica, at the CCJ, you probably would have precedent that has already been established in the CCJ that can guide you in terms of how that case is dealt with.
In the meantime, attorney Isaac Buchanan is in agreement with both former prime ministers on the question of whether Jamaica should have its own appellate court. Mr. Buchanan says there has been significant progress within the CCJ and it can stand up against scrutiny just like the UK-based Privy Council.
I don't care if they want to string me up and disbar me. A final appellate court in Jamaica is complete, not a concept that should be entertained by the common man. The common man is the only person that goes to court. And I will always speak for them whether they like me or not. And we need to understand that as a developing country, even where it is Barbados still goes to the Privy Council, notwithstanding its Republican status. So even if we have ambitions to become a republic, it has nothing to do with how justice is administrated.
He notes that having our final appellate court could be detrimental to individuals getting the justice that they deserve.
When it comes to the concept of justice, sometimes in any jurisdiction, it is very important that fresh eyes can look at justice. And when I say fresh eyes, you are aware that justice is blind. So while I personally have my preference to remain with the Privy Council. I do appreciate that not every litigant can afford to get to the Privy Council, and access to justice is paramount.
Reactions this afternoon to the Grand Gala 60 celebration over the weekend. As Sandy Williams reports, at least one expert is making a suggestion to prevent a repeat of a logistical issue that was highlighted on Saturday.
According to Professor of Culture, Gender and Society at the University of the West Indies Mona campus, Donna Hope, the Jamaica 60 Grand Gala celebration at the National Stadium on Saturday was spectacular.
I enjoyed particularly that display, the drone display, which I think captured a lot of the spirit of what was happening, in the minds of many Jamaicans. The national bird, the coat of arms that you see in bold pose, all of these things. I think the Prime Minister has endeared himself quite significantly to a lot of Jamaicans of all ages with his willingness, I think, to share in some of what is the popular culture of Jamaica and bonding with the the 35 and under demographic. That, I think, is very important.
The annual cultural show saw the National Stadium at its 35,000 capacity, forcing the gates locked before the start of the show. As a result, hundreds of patrons were locked out of the venue.
I have been here almost 4 hours, my children and I. And to date, we have not been able to get in. However, persons within the adjoining community has been able to come in.
I feel like we come daughter in there and our baby outside. And she have everything in there for the baby can get home, forget her something.
Senior lecturer in cultural studies at UWI, Dr. Sonia Stanley Nair, says this was not a good look for Grand Gala.
Those persons, some of them had tickets. I don't know if tickets were being reproduced. As in scalpers who would normally reproduce tickets and try to distribute them. I don't know what happened at all, but it wasn't a good look. I think I've seen that occur before. It's not the first time that we're hearing about this in terms of events at the stadium.
She believes the logistical chaos was due to a lack of security regarding the sale of tickets, hence this suggestion.
Perhaps we need to speak to the people who run festivals like Sumfest. I have not heard of venues like the Captain Hall in Montego Bay being, under such stress with tickets and so on. Persons outside wanting the tickets are not able to. I think it's something to do with security around the tickets, and so we need to take some advice where that is concerned to be able to move forward.
Overall,
I think I would rate the event out of a 10. It certainly was a 9.5. The 0.5% there, that would have been lost to issues around the security and the logistical arrangements related to tickets.
There are things that we probably could have done more of, but again, looking at some of the limitations that we have been working against, and also maybe the limitations of the actual team for the celebration, for the events, I would give Jamaica a 7 out of 10.
Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
The government is this afternoon facing added pressure to provide a breakdown of the expenditure into Kamina Johnson-Smith's failed campaign for the position of Commonwealth Secretary General. The government this week revealed that the campaign for the post cost the government $18.2 million. However, anti-corruption watchdog Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, JAMP, says the information provided by the government does not meet the threshold of transparency for taxpayers who have covered the cost of the campaign. Executive Director of JAMP, Jeanette Calder, says citizens should know the additional and unbudgeted expenses provided to support Mrs. Johnson-Smith's bid for the job as Commonwealth Secretary General. She says despite the pledge to provide the information, it was not stated in the official release.
What we got in this release was really more transparency and accountability by edict. That's not what we want. We came away from the celebration of our 60th, and on the first working day, after that, the public deserves and the public should expect more. This is not transparency, and this is certainly not accountability.
In the meantime, JAMP says it is currently investigating whether there are any clear policies that speak to how ministers or members of the executive receive gifts. It noted that Section 40.3 of the Integrity Commissions Act requires a declaration for any gift over $100,000 that is not from a relative, a parliamentarian, or another public official. Now, based on that law, JAM says the minister will be expected to declare the donations in an appropriate time, which includes the name and address of the donors. Residents of St. Thomas were left frustrated days leading to the independence celebrations. Motorists and commuters were forced to walk miles and endure hours of delay because of traffic congestion. Jamaica Maitland reports.
The more things change are the more they remain the same, according to this frustrated commuter who was stranded for hours Thursday evening due to a traffic pileup on the licensed main road in St. Thomas.
11:30, I'm supposed to reach work. I left my yard from 9:30. I'm reach work 20 past 1 yesterday. I go home back last night. At 12 o'clock, I reach home. You understand me? Because the road blocked up. Pure foolishness are going on.
A truck carrying construction material had blocked the main road, which is the only major thoroughfare that leads to the town, sending the parish into a gridlock. And on Friday morning, a similar issue, more traffic congestion, and to add insult to injury, rain, which made the already deplorable roads worse. Bumper-to-bumper traffic for miles.
I'm a business, I'm have stuff in a traffic. Come out at 7 o'clock. I say, listen, this need to stop. St. Thomas people need to wake up and rise up.
Frustrated taxi operators parked their vehicles.
From morning, we're going on with this here. From morning, we take nearly an hour from Prospect, an hour and a half to go in the morning bay. And we're going back out now at the same amount that take a longer time. Maybe I suffer nearly 2 hours now and can't move.
Others braved it, including this beryllium vehicle, which had to be hauled out of a ditch. Commuters forced to walk.
How much we going to get my money if you buy food feet? I'm dead for hungry. So I have to walk it and come out because I can't get nothing.
Among the crowd was this new mother who had an appointment at the Princess Margaret Hospital. Our cameras observed a taxi operator making a mad rush to the hospital. In it, an elderly man who was not well. It's why the people have described Jamaica's 60th independence celebrations as shameful, one their ancestors wouldn't be proud of.
Nowhere else not stay like this in Jamaica, you know. Only St. Thomas. What we have to do? Raise up my Paul Bogle. We have to call upon the dope if we come fight them. We need changes, man. Trust me. So we are call upon who? Mr. Wellness, the relevant authority, please. Look how the roads get it.
They're also accusing their political directorate of exploiting them.
All the while, all like politicians then take St. Thomas people for kuno mono. They don't do nothing for St. Thomas people. We don't have nothing at all. So we St. Thomas people for do. And when they done, them a drive past and come when voting time and look vote. You know, see them a fear.
And so, they're asking the government for one thing.
What do I fix, Bridget? What do I fix?
Jamaica Maitland, TVJ News.
The manhunt for the 4 escapees from the Otrius police lockup in St. Anne is still underway. According to the police, they are following several leads in relation to the whereabouts of the men. The men were discovered missing about 1 o'clock Friday morning during a routine cell check. They have been identified as 40-year-old Terence Harilal of Claremont St. Anne, who is charged with shooting with intent, and 42-year-old Dennis Colburn of Islington St. Mary, who is charged with rape. The other men are charged with illegal possession of firearm. They are 22-year-old Javar Grant of Prairie St. Anne and 30-year-old Jermaine Rogers of Mile End in Otrius St. Anne. Preliminary investigations indicate that implements were used to cut sections of the metal gates of the cells, allowing the prisoners to escape. We now go to Cody and Barrett for the Business Minute.
JN General Insurance Company is looking at incentivizing the use of dashcams to assist in faster settlement of claims. Assistant General Manager of JN General Insurance, Andrea Martin Gordon, noted that the industry is plagued by fraudulent claims and that if more motorists used the technology, it will not only allow for the insurer to settle claims faster, but it will also aid in preventing fraud. She was responding to questions during a recent road safety webinar. And in business internationally, the U.S. Senate has approved a sweeping $700 billion economic package that includes major legislation on healthcare, tax, and climate change. The bill seeks to lower the cost of some medicines, increase corporate taxes, and reduce carbon emissions. The passing of the bill is a boost ahead of midterm elections. That's it for the Business Minute. I'm Cody Ann Barrett.
And the time now for the top regional and international stories with Sandy Williams.
In regional news, the Organization of American States is pleading for urgency to continue working to increase security in Haiti and to begin the democratization process. The OAS says the institutional crisis that Haiti is currently experiencing is a direct result of the actions taken by the country's endogenous forces and by the international community. According to the OAS, the last 20 years of the international community's presence in Haiti has amounted to one of the worst and clearest failures implemented and executed within the framework of any international cooperation. On the international scene, at least 8 people were killed in Seoul on Monday after record downpours flooded homes, roads, and subway stations in the South Korean capital, cutting power and forcing hundreds to evacuate. South Korea's Interior and Safety Ministry said 3 of those who died had been trapped in a flooded semi-basement. 9 others were injured and at least 7 people remain missing. The South Korean president sent his condolences to the victims on Tuesday, saying he would conduct an on-site inspection and work to prevent additional damage. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Sandy Williams.
And that's the Midday News. I'm Shane Masters. Join us at 7 for Prime Time News. On behalf of the news, sports, and production teams, have a good afternoon.